Alright, hello and welcome everybody. My name is DatHalfbreed here, and I'm coming to you again with another lecture slash presentation here. This is a question that I get a lot, and I think that a lot of people ask sometimes in my chat, where they ask, where do you get your decks? Do you build your own decks? Do you just copy off the list? And how do you build your decks, right? And I definitely don't copy all of my deck lists. I do sometimes build decks on my own. So here are the steps that I go through personally, at least when I make a deck list that I want to succeed. So here's the steps that I go through and the questions I always ask myself every time I build a deck, and hopefully they'll help you guys make better decks as well. So every deck should start with some cards that you really want to play, that are special to you. It can be a leader, it can be a character, it can be an event, right? Some card that really you want to play and makes you be like, this is the One Piece card for me, right? Because an affinity for a card or a deck always helps you a lot more and helps you play the games necessary to get better at the deck and the game. So recently I wanted to build a deck around this new OPO3 Rush Lucci character. So we're going to use this as an example of the steps that I went through building this Rob Lucci deck to create some steps that you could follow to build your own decks. So we started off with 3 Rush Rob Lucci, right? Pretty simple. Didn't want to play 4 because it doesn't have counter, but at 3 I think we'll see it often enough where we won't always have 2 in our hand, but we're likely to see 2 over the course of a game. The sad part is I'm a competitive player. I'm a realist, right? So the first thing I always do is I've kind of locked in my color with the card that I want to play. What are the other staples and really good cards in that color? You know, there are some cards that are just so good on pure stats and value and effect that they provide that they're hard not to play in whatever deck you're playing, no matter the color, right? In terms of the competitive aspect of the game. So in black currently right now, that's the Admirals, right? These 3 SRs are so juiced, especially Borsellino. Sakazuki is a huge body, kills a really high cost thing, right? 5 or less. Kuzan draws you a free card on a 4 or 5k and helps your removal kill basically anything by giving -4, right? So these are the cards that I feel like we have to play. So this is what gets added to the deck first. Right, so these are our have to plays. We've got the real power cards in our deck. 4 Kuzan, 4 Sakazuki, 4 Borsellino. And then a next big question I always ask myself building One Piece decks that's kind of a definer of the format is, can you play a searcher? Right? These cards that let you look at the top cards of your deck and pick a card of their kind, they're incredibly important because, as I talked about earlier in my previous video, talking about the format, searchers create consistency and velocity. And what I mean by that is they consistently let you see the same key cards every game, and they let you do that while adding to the board in an often meaningful way. They help you clear other little creatures. They help you get late game pecks in when you're out of cards and you have a bunch of Dawn. They have a huge impact on the competitive viability of, like, if your deck has a searcher, it is often inherently stronger than any deck that doesn't have one. Right, so black has 2 searchers, Spandam and Brand New. I want to make a really important statement here that I hope you guys will remember and take with you. When you realize what searcher you are playing, please always do the math of your searchers. I'm always trying to tell people to be a realist. When you whiff on your searchers, sure, it's a little bit of luck, but in actuality, it's a statistical reliability. Build your decks in a way where your searchers won't whiff as often, or be aware at least of how often your searchers are going to whiff. You can use any hypergeometric calculator here. I linked for one from aetherhub.com. You put in the number of cards in your deck, then you put in the number of cards that the searcher looks at, and then you put in the number of potential hits for that searcher in your deck. My number personally when I build a deck is 80%. So I want my searchers to hit 80% of the time, but I'm still aware that 1 out of every 5 searchers is probably going to whiff. So when it happens, I'm not too upset because I know it's just a statistical inevitability. Alright, so we came to the realization we want to play both searchers, that's the goal. And inherently, what playing both of the searchers means is we have to be a Lucci leader, because Spandam only lets you activate his ability if your leader is CP9. So the next step of building a one-piece deck is you need 2k counters in your deck. You just won't be able to win games with cards that only counter for 1, or if you have a bunch of cards in your hand that don't counter for anything. My rule is that every deck should have at least 12 cards that counter for more than 1,000. Right? So this means either 2k counters or event counters. Right? In this case, I was playing 8 2ks with Suru and Khalifa, and 4 impact waves, which are +4. Some decks can play a lot more. Some decks can go up to the 14, and Whitebeard is one of the decks that plays like 20 or 22 cards in their deck purely for counter. Here's what it looks like. We got some counter power now. We got Ford Suru in there, we got Khalifa in there looking pretty, and we got Shockwave. So our deck's definitely starting to come together. In this case, now you should start thinking about your curve. What are the cost values of the cards that are already in your deck, and where do you need to fill out the rest? So in this case, I have a rush character in my deck, so I knew I wanted to be a little bit more aggressively slanted. So we can go back and see, right now I have a lot of things at 4, but right now I have nothing in my deck at 3 and nothing at 5. That's the slot that I ended up really wanting to fill, so I played Kaku to be my 5-drop. Then I filled the 3s in with Fukuro, which is obviously a really good card. And Nero was my final end-up selection for another 3-drop, and because of its CP9 text. And I'll talk more about that later. So now look at that. We got a beautiful curve in our deck. It's very pretty. We've got 1s, we've got 2s, we've got 3s, we got 4s, we got 5s, we got 6s, and we got some counters. Surprisingly enough, this is already 46 cards. So we only had 4 slots left in our deck, right? And now you've reached the filler slots of the deck, right? These are kind of the slots that you should mess around with the most, where you have the most leeway to, take some out, put some different cards in, try a bunch of different stuff. Right, in this case, I wanted one more big bomb type creature, which I ended up choosing Isho, and I wanted one more basically 2k counter, and 6 King Pistol is not exactly a 2k counter, but it does the same thing when we want to counter an attack for 7 basically. So those are our final selections. So we just did 2 of each of these. Then we have a final 50 card deck list here. 4 Kuzan, 4 Sakazuki, 4 Suru, 4 Borsalino, 2 Isho, 4 Kaku, 4 Khalifa, 4 Spandam. Then we only have 3 Nero since it's just a vanilla. We have 4 Fukuro, 4 Branu, 3 Rob Lucci, 2 6 King Pistol, and 4 Shockwave. I wanted to also give you guys a little behind the scenes of the deck build, right? I glossed over a lot of really hard decisions and cuts and agonizing decisions, that a lot of which had to do with achieving the 80% number that I wanted to hit with both of my searchers, right? The final deck list, we ended up with 20 CP9 cards, which gave us about an 80% hit chance on Spandam, right? And 22 Navy cards for an 85% hit chance on Branu. So these were numbers that I was happy with. They're each going to whiff about 1 out of every 5 times, but Branu's going to hit more consistently than Spandam. So to get these numbers to be somewhat similar to each other, a lot of cards got the axe. Like, I ended up playing Nero instead of Kobe, basically, for the simple fact that I needed more CP9 cards in my deck. I ended up having to play 6 King Pistol instead of Garp because I needed more CP9 characters in my deck. and I had to play Isho instead of 10-drop Kuzan because I found out the hard way one game that brand new specifies you can only have specifically Navy, and former Navy doesn't count. So brand new does not search for Kuzan. So I had to play Isho instead. Now, you might think, all right, we have a deck list. Woohoo, we're done. Let's go out and jam. Wrong. You're actually not done with the deck building process yet. Not really. The best thing to do is to not only have a deck list, but to also have a deck plan. What is your deck supposed to do? So the way I always try and put it is create a 3-step plan for your deck. Now, I know this is really simple, and it's probably stuff you've heard a million times before, and you're like, oh my god, that's so lame. But it's really important to know what you're going to do before you even sit down at the table. You don't have to think about it that much. You might change your game plan a little bit depending on who you're playing against, but you're still always sticking to the same general game plan. So for example, for the Lucci deck, I came up with these 3 simple plans, right? Step 1, we're just going to try and draw cards and fill the graveyard with stuff. Step 2, we're going to clear our opponent's board and add stuff onto our board. And then step 3, we're going to kill the opponent with Rush Lucci and our Leader Lucci leader effect. Pretty simple plan, but we can break it down a little bit more, right? So step 1, we're filling the graveyard because Kaku and Lucci both need 2 full CP9 cards in your graveyard before they really can activate their abilities and do anything other than be vanillas. So we have to meet their conditions somehow, right? So in this case, we're always in the beginning of the game, we're looking for brand news and spandams and CP9 cards with counter value that we can just throw into our graveyard to counter out of early swings and fill our graveyard in the process, right? And then once we've achieved this, we get to move on to the second step, where we get to start killing their characters and playing our own. Sakazuki and Kaku do the main job of killing stuff. They kill a huge range of different things, and you can always adjust costs with your Tsurus and your Khalifas. And they're big bodies that help you attack for 7 very easily, right? Sakazuki attacks for 7 by himself, and Kaku just needs 1 Dawn. And then we reach step 3, where we just kill with our Luccis, right? We've cleared most of the cards on their board. We have somewhat of a board. Now we can just play Lucci with Rush, and we still have a bunch of Dawn left over to attach to our existing board and still swing and kill them, right? And we can also then in the late game, we can just, if they have any blockers, we can place a bunch of Dawn on our leader, attack them, and if they block at any point in the string of attacks that are coming, we get to discard 2 cards and unrest our leader and close out the game that way. This idea works for every deck, and I hope that you often approach decks that you play and decks that you build with this kind of thinking in mind, and you can modify these plans versus different deck lists. But the more you come prepared with a plan, the easier and quicker a lot of your games are going to go. So we can give other examples of how this plan would work, right? For example, if I was playing Law, the way I play it is, we have 3 steps. Step 1, we draw cards and we fill the board with stuff. Step 2, we start activating our leader ability for value, right? We play Laws, we draw even more cards. We play Vistas to kill their stuff. We bounce Otamas to, shrink their stuff and attack it and kill it. And then step 3, we kill them with a bunch of small attacks for 5 or with the 2 huge attacks using Restand Law. Easy enough, straightforward. Here's another example. Doflamingo. Step 1, we stack the top of the deck so that we know what's coming on top. Step 2, we gain value and board position using our leader ability, right? We get free bodies into play. Then step 3, we kill the opponent using our 9-drop Mihawk and our 7 Dofi. 7-drop Dofi. Easy enough. So here's my last example. Here we got Zora. We're playing an aggressive Zora deck. Step 1, we flood the board with our cheap 1-drop creatures. Step 2, we start pecking at them and lowering their hand with small attacks for 5. And then step 3, we kill them once we have Edward 9 gate. Sticking to simple plans can often be better because it allows you to enter every game with some orientation of where to go, which will help often ensure that you don't do things like go to time or get stuck in situations where you don't know what you should be doing. It also emphasizes this idea of phases of the game, where you're in the beginning, you're setting up your board or your plan, and then in the middle, you're ensuring that your opponent can't stop you, and then in the end game, you need to make sure that your opponent actually dies, right? You can't win the game by just staying alive and doing stuff. You need to have a solid plan of attacking them in a way that is not just 5k every turn, and where they actually run out of cards and die, right? Die to your attacks, maybe even if they do have cards in hand, right? So, and that's it, everybody. You know, this is going to be a kind of a quickie deck list thing that I wanted to be, a quickie video that I wanted to get out for you guys, just because I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've been really enjoying this Lucci deck that I've built. And I think it'll help a lot of people both thinking about the way decks work and help building their own decks to hopefully get you guys to do some innovating. You know, we all love innovation, we all love new deck lists. And, you know, hopefully I can show you guys that this Lucci deck is a real deck. So, if you like the video, don't forget to do all the things that the algos like. I'm not going to do the whole listicle, but you can definitely check me out on twitch.tv/DatHalfbreed, where we stream One Piece games all the time. We're working our way through all the leaders and preparing for more treasure cups and regionals. So thanks guys for your time, of course. I hope you guys love playing this One Piece TCG as much as I do. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.